She had always known that life would test her in ways most people couldn't imagine. From a young age, she had trained herself to be disciplined, focused, and fearless. But nothing could have prepared her for the environment she was about to enter: Navy SEAL training. It wasn't just the physical challenges that were daunting. The endless runs, the grueling obstacle courses, the freezing water swims. It was the constant skepticism, the judgment, and the disbelief she would have to endure every single day. From the moment she arrived at the SEAL training facility, the atmosphere was tense and competitive. Men around her moved with confidence, their years of preparation evident in the way they carried themselves. They looked at her with curiosity at first, then with doubt, and finally with open amusement. "Women can't handle this," one of them had said within her first hour, laughing as if her very presence was a joke. Others nodded in agreement, whispering behind their hands and sharing stories of failed female attempts they had heard of. Stung, but she refused to let it show. She quickly realized that proving herself here would require more than just physical strength. It was about mental toughness, strategy, and unshakable determination. Every drill, every obstacle, and every exercise was a test not just of endurance but of character. She found herself constantly observing the men around her, studying their techniques, noting their mistakes, and planning how she could improve on them. While they underestimated her, she silently took mental notes and set small, private goals for herself. The first few days were brutal. She endured hours of running with packs that felt like they weighed twice her body weight. She dragged herself across mud, scaled walls that seemed impossible, and swam through freezing waters while her muscles screamed in protest. Yet she never faltered. Each time someone laughed or shook their head in disbelief, she tightened her focus even more. Those doubts didn't weaken her, they fueled her. She remembered why she was here. Not to impress anyone, but to prove to herself that she could meet the impossible standards of a Navy SEAL. One particular moment stood out in those early days. During a team drill, the men were paired off, and she was forced to work with one of the most skeptical members. He barely looked at her and muttered, "Hope you don't slow us down." Every fiber in her body wanted to lash out, to prove him wrong immediately. But instead, she focused on her training, moving faster, lifting heavier, and thinking smarter. By the end of the drill, she had not only kept up with him, she had outperformed him in nearly every aspect. The look on his face, shock, followed by reluctant respect, was brief, but it was enough to make her realize that performance speaks louder than words. Even though she experienced moments of success, the skepticism never fully went away. During meals, she overheard men joking about how a woman couldn't possibly keep up with the grueling demands. During briefings, some officers would unconsciously direct instructions away from her, as if she weren't even part of the team. Each of these moments could have been crushing. Many people might have allowed themselves to shrink under that pressure, to convince themselves that the voices were right. But she refused. She turned every insult, every laugh, and every doubt into fuel. Her inner voice became her strongest ally. Every time she felt exhaustion creeping in, she reminded herself of the countless hours of preparation she had invested in her mind and body. Every time someone scoffed, she visualized herself completing the toughest obstacle, hitting the target perfectly, or leading her team through an impossible exercise. This mental discipline was as crucial as her physical training. She learned to shut out the negativity, to focus on her own path, and to rise above the disbelief that surrounded her. By the end of the first week, she had started to earn small, silent nods from some of her peers. Not everyone was convinced, and she knew she still had a long way to go, but she had begun to prove something important. Determination, skill, and courage are not determined by gender. She had planted the first seeds of respect, though she knew the real test was still ahead. The kind of test that would push her to the limit and show everyone that she was more than capable of facing danger and taking control in life or death situations. Even as she lay in her bunk at night, muscles sore and body exhausted, she didn't complain. Instead, she reflected on the day, planning ways to improve tomorrow. She visualized herself moving with speed and precision, reacting quickly, and overcoming every obstacle in her path. She imagined herself facing those who doubted her, not with anger, but with undeniable proof of her abilities. In those quiet moments, she felt a growing sense of confidence. She was determined to change perceptions, not just for herself, but for every woman who might come after her, daring to enter a world that had long underestimated her kind. By the time the first part of her journey ended, she had made a silent promise. She would not just survive SEAL training, she would excel. She would turn every laugh, every doubt, and every sneer into a testament of her skill, courage, and unshakable spirit. And those who laughed now, they would soon have a reason to watch in awe. The day of the challenge had finally arrived, and the air at the SEAL training facility was thick with tension. Every trainee could feel it, an invisible pressure pressing on their shoulders, reminding them that this was not just another drill. This was the moment that separated those who talked about courage from those who actually lived it. For her, it was another opportunity to prove herself in a world where every step, every decision, and every action was under intense scrutiny. The mission scenario had been laid out carefully by the instructors. It was a live-fire exercise designed to mimic a high-risk combat situation. The terrain was treacherous, dotted with obstacles, hidden vantage points, and simulated enemy positions. There were snipers positioned at multiple locations, each with a clear line of sight and a deadly potential. The goal was clear: neutralize the threats and secure the area within a strict time frame. But the exercise was not just about shooting accuracy. It was about speed, strategy, awareness, and the ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. Every trainee knew that one wrong move could cost lives in the simulation. As she lined up with the rest of the team, she could feel the skeptical eyes on her. The male trainees, some of whom had mocked her just days before, whispered among themselves. "This is going to be interesting," one said with a smirk, his tone full of doubt. Another muttered, "I don't think she'll even get close to hitting a target." She heard them but didn't respond. There was no need for words. Her focus was entirely on the mission ahead. She had prepared mentally for this, visualizing every step, every movement, and every shot. The instructors gave the signal to start, and immediately, chaos erupted. Simulated gunfire echoed across the field. Smoke filled the air, and the team had to navigate through the obstacles while tracking enemy positions. Many trainees froze or hesitated at first, scanning for the snipers, unsure how to act under pressure. But she moved with deliberate calm, scanning the terrain quickly and efficiently, mentally mapping each sniper's location and calculating the order in which to neutralize them. Her first challenge came almost immediately. A sniper was hidden behind a rocky outcrop, partially obscured but deadly if ignored. While some trainees hesitated, unsure of how to approach, she carefully adjusted her stance, controlled her breathing, and aimed. The shot was precise, clean, fast, and accurate. She had neutralized the threat before anyone else even realized what had happened. The subtle, almost imperceptible nod she gave herself was enough. Inside, she felt a rush of satisfaction, not because she wanted praise, but because she had executed her plan perfectly under pressure. As she moved to the next target, the disbelief around her became more obvious. Her male teammates were struggling, hesitating, and fumbling through the exercise. Some of them tried to offer advice, but it was clear they weren't used to being outperformed by someone they had underestimated. Her quiet confidence contrasted sharply with their panic. She didn't rush recklessly. She didn't act impulsively. Every move was calculated, precise, and efficient. She had learned long ago that composure often mattered more than raw speed. By the time she had neutralized 3 of the sniper positions, the atmosphere had changed. Those who had doubted her were no longer laughing. They were watching in silence, some even in awe. There was no room for mockery in the face of skill, and her performance was speaking louder than any words could. Even the instructors, seasoned veterans who had seen countless trainees fail and succeed, were impressed by her methodical approach and calm demeanor. She wasn't just participating in the exercise. She was dominating it. The clock was ticking relentlessly, a constant reminder that time was the enemy as much as the snipers themselves. She moved with efficiency, prioritizing targets based on threat level and location. Her tactical thinking allowed her to anticipate the sniper's moves, making each step safer for herself and her team. Meanwhile, her peers were beginning to realize that this was no ordinary trainee. They had underestimated her from the start, but now there was no ignoring her skill, precision, and courage under fire. Even in the heat of action, she remained mentally sharp. Each shot, each movement, and each decision was deliberate. She kept her focus on the objective, ignoring the whispers, the stares, and the earlier doubts. Her mental preparation had paid off. While others were scrambling to react, she was acting with clarity and control. She had become the anchor that the team unknowingly needed, and though they didn't admit it aloud, she was setting the pace for the mission. By the end of the exercise, it was clear that she had outperformed nearly everyone. Not only had she neutralized the most challenging targets, but she had done so in record time, showing tactical awareness, mental toughness, and physical skill that few could match. The skepticism that had followed her since day one was beginning to crumble. Those who had laughed were now silent, watching her with a mixture of awe, respect, and disbelief. She didn't celebrate or boast. Instead, she used the moment to quietly reinforce her own confidence. The challenge had been designed to test every skill she had, and she had passed with flying colors. More importantly, she had begun to change minds, not with arguments or words, but with undeniable proof of what she was capable of. For her, this was more than just a victory in a drill. It was the first step toward rewriting expectations and showing that courage, skill, and determination are not determined by gender. After proving herself in the first wave of the mission, she knew the real challenge had only just begun. The environment was unpredictable, and success depended not only on her physical skill, but on her sharp mind and quick thinking. While others relied solely on their strength or training, she understood that victory came from careful planning, strategy, and foresight. Every second counted, and every decision could mean the difference between completing the mission successfully or failing. As she observed the field, she noticed things many of her peers overlooked. Shadows shifted in ways that suggested hidden sniper positions. Uneven terrain offered both obstacles and opportunities. She quickly visualized the best routes, angles, and positions to take advantage of the environment. This was where her mental training came into play. In moments of extreme pressure, many people freeze or make mistakes, but she had learned to stay calm and think clearly. She treated every challenge like a puzzle, an opportunity to outsmart the obstacles and come out on top. She recalled countless hours of preparation during training. Each session, whether it was long-distance marksmanship, tactical maneuvering, or situational awareness drills, had built the foundation she now relied upon. But training alone wasn't enough. She had to adapt to a real scenario where unpredictable variables tested her skill. Unlike simulations where patterns were predictable, this mission required improvisation, creativity, and split-second decisions. She thrived under this pressure. Where others saw chaos, she saw possibilities. Her first step was to map out the sniper positions mentally. She had learned to read subtle signs, disturbances in the terrain, reflections from scopes, faint movements behind cover. Each observation allowed her to predict where the threats were and plan the most efficient way to eliminate them. Timing was critical. A single miscalculation could expose her, or worse, compromise her team. She took a deep breath, controlled her heartbeat, and began to move through the field with calculated precision. The first sniper she approached was partially concealed behind a pile of rubble. The trainee closest to her hesitated, nervous under pressure, while others scanned the area without committing to action. She, however, remained focused, calculating the angle, distance, and timing of her move. With steady hands and a controlled breath, she neutralized the threat. There was no hesitation, no wasted movement, just accuracy and control. The subtle click of her rifle echoed in her ears, a sound that signified both danger averted and the beginning of momentum building in her favor. Her methodical approach soon began to draw attention. The men who had once mocked her were now silently observing. Some tried to predict her next move, hoping to anticipate her actions, but she was already thinking 3 steps ahead. She didn't allow herself to be distracted by their disbelief or curiosity. Every action she took was calculated to maximize efficiency and safety. She moved like a shadow across the terrain, precise and confident, her mind fully engaged in the tactical puzzle before her. Each sniper she neutralized boosted not just her confidence but her rhythm. She had learned during training that confidence under pressure often became a force multiplier. The more decisive she became, the more control she maintained over the situation. She adjusted her position after every action, constantly reassessing the field, predicting the next move of the remaining snipers, and planning her approach. While others reacted, she acted. While they hesitated, she moved with clarity and purpose. There was one particularly challenging sniper, hidden behind a natural mound with only a small part of their body visible. Many trainees would have ignored it, considering the risk too high or the angle too difficult. She, however, saw an opportunity. Using her training in stealth movement, observation, and marksmanship, she found a safe line of approach. She timed her movement perfectly, adjusted for distance and wind, and neutralized the threat with a clean, precise shot. The satisfaction she felt wasn't about the kill. It was about the mastery of her skill and the realization that preparation, patience, and mental focus could overcome nearly any obstacle. As the mission progressed, it became clear that her approach was different from everyone else's. While others relied on brute force or rushed movements, she relied on careful observation, strategic planning, and calculated action. She became a silent leader on the field, setting the pace and standard without saying a word. Her presence alone began to influence the way her teammates operated. Even the skeptics could not ignore the evidence. Her calm, intelligent approach was proving far more effective than raw aggression or panic. By the time she reached the halfway point of the exercise, she had developed a clear pattern of approach that allowed her to move through the field efficiently while minimizing risk. Each step, each breath, and each shot was deliberate. Her mental map of the battlefield grew sharper with every movement, allowing her to anticipate sniper positions before others even realized they were there. The combination of skill, preparation, and strategic thinking was becoming unstoppable. Even in moments of extreme pressure, she maintained her composure. Her heart raced, adrenaline surged, but her mind remained clear. This clarity, born from countless hours of mental and physical training, allowed her to execute complex maneuvers that others would have found impossible. The initial laughter, the doubt, and the disbelief that had greeted her when she arrived in training now felt distant. Here, in the heart of the challenge, she was proving something far more important than individual skill. She was proving that intelligence, strategy, and composure could triumph over prejudice and skepticism. By the end of this part of the mission, she had not only neutralized the immediate threats, but had also laid the groundwork for the next phase. She had shown that preparation, observation, and tactical thinking were as important as strength and speed. She was ready for the coming challenges, and the realization that she could outthink and outperform her peers gave her a quiet but unshakable confidence. The real test was just ahead, but she had already begun to rewrite the expectations of those around her. The moment of action had fully arrived. The training field was alive with simulated gunfire, the smell of gunpowder, and the tension of high-stakes combat. Each trainee was under pressure, their nerves tested to the extreme. For most, this was a chaotic and frightening situation. But for her, it was a chance to prove everything she had trained for, to show that preparation, focus, and courage could overcome fear and doubt. She had spent the past few days observing, calculating, and mentally rehearsing. Every sniper's potential position, every shadow, and every obstacle had been mapped in her mind. Now it was time to execute that plan. Moving with precision and intent, she approached the first target. The sniper was partially hidden behind a ridge, his scope just barely catching a glint in the sunlight. Most of her teammates hesitated, unsure of how to approach without exposing themselves. She didn't. Her movements were smooth and calculated, every step measured to maintain stealth while keeping her advantage. Breathing deeply to steady herself, she aimed and fired. The sniper was neutralized in one clean, precise shot. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. Just skill honed through countless hours of practice. She paused only for a brief moment to reassess the situation before moving to the next target. Each victory was small but critical, each step building momentum and confidence. While others around her were struggling, panicking, or hesitating, she moved methodically, her mind calm, her focus sharp. What made her stand out wasn't just her accuracy, it was her tactical thinking. She didn't just react to the threats. She anticipated them. She adjusted her position after each shot, constantly scanning the field, predicting where the next sniper might be and how they could respond. Her situational awareness was unmatched, allowing her to stay one step ahead. Every movement was intentional, every decision calculated. In a chaotic environment where most trainees were reactive, she was proactive, controlling the pace of the mission. The next sniper posed a greater challenge. Partially concealed behind a small boulder and flanked by trees, the target required careful calculation. Many trainees might have rushed the shot and exposed themselves to danger. She, however, assessed the angle, estimated the wind, calculated the distance, and adjusted her breathing. The result was another flawless shot, executed with calm precision. The confidence she gained with each successful hit only strengthened her resolve. She knew that she wasn't just proving her skill. She was proving that determination, intelligence, and focus could overcome prejudice and doubt. Her male teammates, who had laughed and doubted her just days before, were now watching in stunned silence. Some whispered among themselves, unable to hide their amazement. Others couldn't tear their eyes away, realizing that she was performing at a level few could match. It wasn't arrogance or showmanship that made her impressive. It was competence. She had earned respect through action, silently demonstrating that skill and courage are not determined by gender or past assumptions. As she moved through the field, taking down sniper after sniper, the tension grew. The simulated gunfire and chaotic noise made it easy to lose focus, but she stayed calm. She treated each moment like a puzzle, assessing the threats, planning her moves, and executing with precision. She understood that panic and hesitation were the enemy, and she refused to let them control her actions. Every calculated move increased her efficiency and effectiveness, allowing her to eliminate threats quickly while staying safe. There was a particularly tense moment when she spotted a sniper in a hidden position. The target was almost invisible, only partially exposed by the corner of a wall. Many trainees would have passed by, uncertain and nervous. But she didn't hesitate. Using her training, she silently adjusted her position, took careful aim, and neutralized the threat with a single shot. That moment was a turning point, not just in the exercise, but in how everyone around her perceived her capabilities. Her peers were no longer skeptical. They were watching with admiration and respect. Despite the high-stakes nature of the exercise, she remained methodical. She didn't rush even when time was pressing. She prioritized targets, choosing which threats to neutralize first based on risk and positioning. Her decisions were tactical, efficient, and effective. This combination of skill, strategy, and calm under pressure set her apart, making her performance not just impressive but inspirational. By the time she reached the midpoint of the exercise, it was clear that she was dominating the scenario. She had neutralized multiple threats, moved through the terrain with precision, and remained in control of the situation at all times. The initial laughter and doubt that had greeted her presence days before were replaced by quiet admiration. Her actions spoke louder than words, showing that capability and courage cannot be measured by appearances or assumptions. Even as the exercise continued, she maintained her focus. The remaining targets were difficult and dangerous, but she approached each with the same calm, calculated mindset. She relied on her training, her instincts, and her mental preparation to guide her actions. Each shot, each movement, and each decision was deliberate. She had become a model of excellence under pressure, demonstrating that preparation, courage, and intelligence were as vital as physical strength. By the end of this part of the mission, she had not only proven her skill, but had also shown her teammates and instructors what it truly meant to be a Navy SEAL. She had turned skepticism into respect, doubt into admiration, and laughter into silence. Her performance was a clear message. No challenge was too great when met with preparation, determination, and courage. By the time she reached the midpoint of the mission, she had already taken down several snipers with remarkable precision. But she knew the hardest part was still ahead. The terrain grew more complicated, the threats became more hidden, and the tension in the air was almost tangible. Every movement required careful planning, but she had learned to thrive under pressure. Fear and doubt didn't control her, strategy and focus did. As she advanced, she noticed subtle signs of additional sniper positions that her teammates hadn't detected. Slight movements in foliage, faint reflections on lenses, even small disturbances in the dirt. Her eyes and mind absorbed every detail. While some trainees were relying solely on instinct, she combined instinct with analysis. This gave her a clear advantage, allowing her to anticipate threats before they even fully revealed themselves. Her next few targets were positioned in more difficult spots, requiring creative approaches. One sniper was hidden behind a large fallen tree, with only a tiny portion of their weapon visible. Another was concealed near a low rock formation, difficult to see without exposing oneself. Where others might have panicked or taken reckless shots, she relied on patience and observation. She adjusted her angle, moved with caution, and calculated her timing perfectly. Every shot was deliberate, every move precise, and her confidence grew with each success. The male trainees, who had once mocked her abilities, were now silently watching in disbelief. Their earlier confidence had dissolved, replaced with a mix of admiration and unease. They couldn't ignore what they were seeing. She was moving faster, thinking smarter, and hitting targets they had struggled to even identify. The quiet professionalism she displayed was magnetic. Her teammates found themselves unconsciously following her lead, trying to learn from her movements without her even noticing. At one point, a particularly challenging sniper appeared in a concealed area that required her to move across open ground. Most trainees would have hesitated, afraid of exposure and potential failure. But she didn't. She visualized the path, calculated the timing, and moved like a shadow, barely making a sound. Within moments, the sniper was neutralized. The subtle click of her rifle became almost hypnotic, each sound a testament to her skill, each movement a demonstration of her mental discipline. Her ability to remain calm under pressure was one of her greatest strengths. While others were reacting impulsively to sudden threats, she remained in control. She had trained her mind to focus, to see clearly even when chaos surrounded her. Every movement was part of a larger strategy. She didn't just react to what was happening. She controlled it. This level of awareness made her unstoppable, allowing her to take on multiple threats in quick succession without making mistakes. The rhythm she developed on the field was almost like a dance. She would move, pause, assess, and act. Each sniper she eliminated was another step in a carefully choreographed series of actions. Her breathing remained steady, her eyes sharp, and her mind fully engaged. She didn't allow herself to be distracted by the gasps or whispers of her peers, the simulated gunfire, or the pressure of the ticking clock. Everything else faded away except the mission and her ability to execute it flawlessly. By the time she reached the later stages of this part of the exercise, her momentum had become unstoppable. The snipers that remained were the most challenging, hidden in positions that would have caused hesitation in nearly anyone else. But she approached them with the same calm, methodical mindset. Each shot she took was calculated, precise, and efficient. There was no room for error, yet she performed with flawless execution, demonstrating mastery over both her training and her environment. The reactions of those around her were almost as striking as her own performance. The men who had doubted her laughed now seemed frozen, unsure how to respond. Some whispered to one another, realizing they had underestimated her entirely. Even instructors, experienced and hardened by years of training, watched with approval. It was clear that her ability to combine mental focus, physical skill, and tactical awareness was extraordinary, even by SEAL standards. Despite her growing reputation on the field, she didn't let pride or ego enter her mind. Every action was focused on the mission, on completing each objective safely and effectively. She knew that complacency or distraction could undo all her hard work. Maintaining control and composure was just as important as taking down each sniper. This humility, paired with exceptional skill, made her performance even more impressive and inspiring to those who witnessed it. By the end of this part of the mission, she had taken down several more snipers, moving through the field with unparalleled efficiency. Her calm demeanor, combined with calculated decision-making and flawless execution, set her apart from everyone else. What began as doubt and mockery had now transformed into silent respect and admiration. She had proven that her abilities were not defined by gender, but by discipline, training, and unwavering determination. She paused briefly to assess the remaining threats and plan her next moves. The mission wasn't over yet, but her confidence had never been higher. She had discovered a rhythm, a clarity, and a sense of control that made her nearly unstoppable. What others had assumed would be impossible for her was now being achieved with precision and intelligence. She had become more than a trainee on a field. She had become a force to be reckoned with, a living example of courage, skill, and perseverance under pressure. The tension on the field had reached its peak. Smoke hung low over the terrain. The sounds of simulated gunfire echoed from every direction, and the remaining snipers were the most skilled and well-hidden yet. Every trainee felt the pressure, but she remained calm, her mind razor-sharp, her movements precise. This was the climax of the mission, the moment where preparation, skill, and courage would be tested to the absolute limit. She paused for a brief moment behind a low rock, assessing the positions of the remaining snipers. Each one was concealed perfectly, requiring careful observation to detect their movements. She had anticipated these final threats during her mental preparation, but real-life execution was far more challenging than any simulation. Still, she felt ready. She had already proven herself in the earlier stages, but now it was time to push herself further, to complete the mission flawlessly. The first of the final snipers was hidden in the shadow of a tall tree, only partially visible through the thick foliage. Many trainees would have hesitated, concerned about exposure or miscalculation. She, however, moved with deliberate control, each step calculated to minimize risk. She adjusted her aim, controlled her breathing, and fired. The target was neutralized instantly. The quiet satisfaction she felt was not from ego but from knowing that careful planning and composure had worked perfectly under pressure. The remaining snipers were more dangerous, positioned in locations that required both precision and creativity to reach safely. One was behind a jagged rock outcrop, another concealed in the underbrush at a distance that demanded perfect adjustment for wind and trajectory. She moved like a shadow across the terrain, maintaining a steady rhythm, her mind focused on observation, calculation, and execution. Each decision was critical. Each shot could determine the success of the mission. Her confidence grew with each successful engagement. The rhythm she had developed, observe, calculate, execute, reassess, was working flawlessly. She had become a master of both patience and timing. While others were reacting under pressure, she was controlling it, guiding herself and, indirectly, her team through the chaos. The skepticism and laughter from earlier days were long gone. What remained was awe, respect, and a growing realization among her peers that she was extraordinary. One of the final snipers required her to cross open ground, exposed to potential danger, to take the perfect shot. Many would have been paralyzed by fear in such a situation, but she relied on her training and instincts. She timed her movements perfectly, staying low, moving swiftly, and adjusting her aim with calculated precision. The sniper was neutralized in a single, clean shot. The silent efficiency of her actions left a visible impact on her teammates, who now watched with a mix of astonishment and admiration. The last sniper posed the greatest challenge of all. Positioned in a cleverly concealed location with natural cover and line-of-sight advantage, the threat seemed almost impossible to approach. But she didn't hesitate. Her mind worked quickly, breaking down the problem into smaller steps. Where to move, when to pause, how to adjust for distance and wind, and how to execute a flawless shot without exposing herself. She took a deep breath, controlled the tension in her muscles, and moved into position. The shot was perfect. The sniper was neutralized instantly, leaving the field clear of all threats. For a moment there was silence. Even the instructors, seasoned veterans who had witnessed countless exercises, paused to take in what had just happened. It was an extraordinary display of skill, composure, and courage under pressure. She had completed the mission in 13 minutes, neutralizing 9 snipers in a record-breaking performance that stunned everyone present. Her male teammates, who had doubted her abilities, were now speechless. The earlier laughter and mockery had vanished, replaced by quiet respect and astonishment. Some even exchanged looks of disbelief, as if trying to process what they had just witnessed. She hadn't just succeeded. She had dominated a scenario designed to challenge even the most experienced trainees. Her actions spoke louder than any words could, proving that skill, focus, and courage are not determined by gender or past assumptions. Even after completing the mission, she didn't celebrate loudly or boast. Her focus remained on duty and responsibility. She quickly assessed the field, ensuring no threats remained and that her team was safe. Her humility was as remarkable as her skill, demonstrating that true leadership and excellence come from discipline, preparation, and a calm mind under pressure. The instructors formally acknowledged her achievement, recognizing not just the speed and accuracy of her performance, but the intelligence, strategy, and composure she had shown throughout the exercise. Her performance became a model for others, an example of how preparation, mental toughness, and courage could overcome even the most difficult challenges. She had not only completed the mission but had set a new standard for what was possible in the SEAL training environment. By the end of this climactic moment, the field was quiet except for the subdued murmurs of awe and admiration. The laughter and skepticism that had greeted her at the start were gone, replaced by undeniable respect. She had proven something far greater than individual skill. She had challenged and changed perceptions, showing that determination, intelligence, and courage define a warrior, not assumptions or stereotypes. As she exhaled and allowed herself a brief moment of reflection, she understood the impact of what she had accomplished. The mission had been more than a test of skill. It had been a test of character, and she had passed with flying colors. Her courage, focus, and composure under extreme pressure had not only saved the exercise, but had also earned her the respect of everyone who had doubted her. She had transformed the impossible into reality, leaving a lasting impression on all who witnessed it. The mission was complete, and the field was finally quiet. Smoke had cleared, the simulated gunfire had stopped, and the tension that had gripped every trainee had begun to fade. She stood among her teammates, catching her breath, muscles aching but mind still alert. The victory wasn't just in completing the exercise. It was in proving herself in a situation that many had doubted she could handle. For the first time, the laughter and mockery that had followed her since training began felt distant and irrelevant. The commanding officer approached, his expression serious but tinged with admiration. He had been watching closely, noting not only her skill with the rifle but also her ability to think strategically, remain calm under pressure, and take control of an entire high-risk situation. "Outstanding performance," he said simply, the weight of his approval heavier than any words could convey. He didn't need to explain. It was obvious to everyone there that she had performed at a level beyond what anyone had expected. Her teammates, who had mocked and doubted her just days before, now looked at her with a mixture of respect and awe. Some avoided eye contact, unsure how to react, while others muttered quiet congratulations, finally recognizing the truth they had refused to see earlier. She had shattered every stereotype and assumption that had been placed upon her. She hadn't just succeeded. She had dominated in a way that left no room for doubt. As the team gathered to debrief, the atmosphere was completely different from the tension of earlier. Instead of laughter, there was silent acknowledgement. Her performance had set a new standard for excellence, and the instructors made sure to highlight her approach. They spoke about her methodical planning, calm execution, and flawless decision-making. They noted how she had neutralized 9 sniper threats in just 13 minutes, an accomplishment that would be remembered long after this exercise was over. Her male teammates, once confident in their own superiority, had learned a valuable lesson. They realized that judgment based on assumptions about gender, appearance, or past performance was flawed. Respect wasn't given. It was earned. And she had earned it, not through words or confrontation, but through undeniable action and extraordinary skill. They had witnessed firsthand what it meant to combine intelligence, discipline, and courage under extreme pressure. Even among her instructors, seasoned veterans with decades of experience, her performance stood out. They were impressed not only by her ability to neutralize threats with precision but also by her mental resilience. Many of them had seen trainees fail under pressure, freeze in critical moments, or lose focus when faced with chaos. She had remained calm, collected, and fully in control from start to finish. Her ability to maintain composure in a high-stakes environment demonstrated qualities of a true leader and an exceptional operator. After the debrief, she walked among her peers, offering quiet acknowledgement to those who had tried and failed to keep pace. She didn't boast or seek personal attention. Her focus remained on the mission and the team. But even in her humility, her presence was powerful. She had proven something far more important than individual skill. She had proven that courage, preparation, and determination could overcome prejudice, doubt, and fear. Her actions began to have a ripple effect. Trainees who had previously questioned the role of women in the SEAL community began to reconsider their assumptions. Some approached her privately, asking how she had maintained focus under pressure, how she had planned so effectively, and how she had remained so confident. Others observed her silently, taking mental notes on her strategies, her movements, and her calm demeanor. What had started as skepticism was gradually turning into inspiration. For her, the achievement was more than just recognition. It was a confirmation of everything she had worked for. The countless hours of training, the mental preparation, the sacrifices, and the unwavering commitment to prove herself. She had faced the doubt of her peers, the challenges of an intense exercise, and the weight of expectation, and she had emerged victorious. But more importantly, she had shown others that skill and courage have no boundaries. Even after the exercise ended, the story of her performance spread quickly. Instructors shared the details with other units, and teammates spoke of the calm precision and strategic brilliance she had displayed. Her achievement became a benchmark, a story that would inspire future trainees and remind everyone that excellence is earned through action, not assumed through bias. She quietly reflected on the journey. From the moment she arrived, facing laughter and skepticism, to this moment of silent respect and acknowledgement, the transformation was remarkable. Not only had she proven her own abilities, but she had also begun to change the culture around her, encouraging others to see beyond stereotypes and focus on competence and dedication. By the end of the day, her peers and instructors alike recognized that she had achieved something extraordinary. She had completed a mission that would be remembered, not because it was easy, but because it had required skill, courage, intelligence, and perseverance under pressure. She had turned doubt into respect, disbelief into admiration, and laughter into awe. Her journey wasn't just personal. It had become a lesson, an inspiration, and a standard of excellence for all who witnessed it. Even as she left the field, exhausted but accomplished, she knew this was only the beginning. The experience had strengthened her resolve, reinforced her confidence, and solidified her reputation. She had proven that determination, focus, and courage are far more powerful than prejudice, doubt, or expectation. And in doing so, she had not only changed the minds of those around her, but had also left a lasting mark on the SEAL community itself. The mission had ended, but the impact of her performance was far from over. The field was quiet now, yet the story of what she had accomplished echoed through every corner of the training facility. What had started as doubt, laughter, and skepticism had transformed into respect, admiration, and inspiration. She had not only completed a seemingly impossible mission but had changed the way everyone around her thought about capability, courage, and determination. Her legacy began to take shape in the immediate aftermath. Instructors spoke of her performance as a model of excellence, pointing out her calm precision, tactical thinking, and flawless execution. They shared the details of her success with other units, emphasizing how she had neutralized 9 snipers in just 13 minutes, all while maintaining composure and strategic control. Her story became a teaching moment, an example for all future trainees, regardless of gender. Her peers, once dismissive and mocking, had a completely different perspective now. Those who had doubted her abilities began to acknowledge the truth. Skill, discipline, and courage are not determined by stereotypes or assumptions. Many approached her with newfound respect, asking questions, seeking guidance, or simply expressing admiration for what she had accomplished. The laughter that had once followed her every step was replaced by a quiet, earned recognition. She had turned critics into witnesses, skeptics into believers. Beyond her immediate circle, the story of her accomplishment began to inspire others in ways she had never anticipated. Young women aspiring to join elite forces saw in her a reflection of what was possible. They realized that barriers, whether physical, mental, or societal, could be overcome with determination, training, and courage. Her achievement became a symbol, a beacon showing that limitations often exist only in the minds of those who impose them. Despite all the recognition and admiration, she remained humble. She didn't boast about her record or seek praise. To her, the mission had never been about proving anyone wrong. It had been about proving to herself that she was capable of excellence, even in the face of extreme doubt and challenge. This humility made her achievement even more remarkable, as it showed that true strength is not in seeking validation, but in performing one's duty with integrity, skill, and focus. Her story also began to challenge the culture around her. In a community where assumptions about gender had long influenced perception, her actions forced people to reconsider their biases. Commanding officers, instructors, and peers alike began to question outdated notions of what women could or could not do in high-risk environments. She became more than a trainee or a soldier. She became a catalyst for change, an example that courage and competence transcend stereotypes. Even outside the SEAL community, her story had ripple effects. As details of her extraordinary performance spread, people were inspired by her discipline, composure, and courage. It was a reminder that excellence is earned, not assumed, that determination, preparation, and mental toughness can overcome even the harshest doubts. She became a role model, not just for aspiring soldiers, but for anyone facing skepticism or obstacles in their own life. As she reflected on her journey, she thought about the doubts and laughter she had faced when she first arrived. Those moments, though painful at the time, had become a source of strength. They had forced her to prepare harder, focus more, and prove herself through action rather than words. In retrospect, she realized that every challenge, every insult, and every skeptical glance had contributed to her ultimate success. They had shaped her determination, sharpened her focus, and fueled her drive to succeed against all odds. She also thought about the teammates who had once doubted her. She hoped that her actions had taught them something beyond respect for her skill. She wanted them to understand that judgment without understanding is limiting, and that the true measure of a person's capability lies in their actions, courage, and resolve, not in appearances or assumptions. By proving herself, she had set a new standard not just for women, but for everyone in the training program. Her legacy continued to grow in the months and years that followed. New trainees arrived, inspired by her story, striving to emulate her discipline and focus. Instructors cited her as an example of excellence under pressure, highlighting how mental preparation and composure can be just as critical as physical skill. She became a benchmark of what was possible, a story that encouraged people to reach higher, train harder, and face challenges with confidence. Ultimately, her achievement went beyond the field, the snipers, and the mission itself. It was a demonstration of courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. It was proof that preparation, intelligence, and focus can overcome doubt, bias, and even fear. She had turned skepticism into respect, disbelief into admiration, and challenge into legacy. Her story became a living testament to what it means to break barriers, defy expectations, and inspire others simply by being courageous, skilled, and determined. In the end, she walked away from the training field not just as a successful trainee, but as a symbol of possibility. Her actions had changed perceptions, inspired others, and left a permanent mark on the community she had entered. She had shown, once and for all, that skill and courage know no gender, and that those willing to prepare, focus, and act decisively can achieve the extraordinary. Her legacy was not only in the mission she completed but in the countless lives she had inspired, the stereotypes she had shattered, and the standard of excellence she had set for generations to come.